All right, let's just dive right in. When you hear made in America, what comes to mind? Probably factories, assembly lines, maybe a sense of national pride, right? But the source material for this explainer asks a really provocative question. What if the most important component being made isn't a thing at all? What if it's our minds? We all know these words. They're practically sacred scripture at Apple. It was their promise to the world, a commitment to changing how we see and use technology. But here's the twist. Today, that same challenge to think different isn't about a new phone or computer. It's being aimed squarely at the American workforce itself. So remember when Apple announced it was bringing some manufacturing back to the US? The reaction was just pure excitement. I mean, the headlines were all about American innovation roaring back to life, a new wave of jobs, this huge feeling of national pride. It felt like a really big win. Yeah, this whole move was presented as, the next chapter of the American dream. For decades, we've watched manufacturing jobs head overseas. So this felt like a major course correction. It was this powerful symbol that, yes, America can still build the future. And this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. Because that beautiful, hopeful picture, it might just be a mirage. The source material argues that all that celebration might be happening way too soon because we're completely overlooking a massive, hidden problem. And that brings us to the real heart of the issue, this idea of a hidden readiness test. See, the challenge isn't just plugging in the fancy new machines. It's a national test of whether our workforce is actually prepared for this new world. And the scary part is, right now, we're not on track to pass. And there it is, plain and simple. This is the core argument. The problem isn't a lack of people who want to work. It's that we have a critical shortage of people who are prepared for the way work gets done now. It's not a labor gap, it's a capability gap. Think about it. In a futuristic factory filled with robots and AI, what's the single most valuable piece of equipment? The one thing you absolutely can't do without? It's the human mind. And that's the one piece of gear we're dangerously neglecting. This really gets to the core of it. The old question used to be simple. Can you do this specific task? But the new question is totally different. It's a loop. It's, can you think critically? Can you adapt on the fly? And most importantly, can you learn and then unlearn and then learn all over again, continuously? To succeed in this new reality, we need what this explainer calls meta minds. We're so used to worrying about supply chains for things we can touch, right? Like microchips and aluminum casings. But the most vital supply chain now is the one we can't see. It's human intelligence, it's adaptability. What's so powerful about this is just how stark the contrast is. We're moving from an era of labor, which was all about repeating the same motions, just following orders, to this new era of capability. And that means making critical decisions, learning in real time, and solving complex problems as a team. Honestly, they're two completely different worlds. So how does a person actually thrive in this new era? Well, the key is what are called meta skills. And as you can see, these are foundational. They don't just help you do one specific job. They help you grow with the system so that as automation gets smarter, you become more valuable, not obsolete. And let's be really, really clear on this point. It is so tempting to just dismiss these as soft skills, that term that makes them sound kind of optional or nice to have. That's a huge mistake. In the factory of tomorrow, these are nothing less than survival skills. And look, this isn't some vague, abstract idea. We're talking about concrete abilities. Things like reasoning through a complex problem, communicating clearly with your team, being self-aware enough to know what you don't know, and adapting when things go wrong. It's also about things like AI fluency, being able to work alongside intelligent systems. This is the new essential toolkit. Okay, so if the problem is a massive skills gap, what's the solution? Well, it's to build a whole new kind of infrastructure. Not roads and bridges, but human infrastructure. We have to invest in the operating system of our workforce, the software that runs on the hardware of our brains. So here's the proposed game plan, a 4-step call to action. First, invest money directly into new kinds of learning centers focused on these skills. Second, forge real partnerships between companies and universities. Third, completely redesign technical education so that meta skills are at the absolute center. And finally, number 4, we have to start seeing workforce development not as a thing you finish, but as a continuous, lifelong journey. This quote is just so powerful. What a metaphor. We can build the most advanced, gleaming factories in the entire world. But if we don't build up the mental and intellectual infrastructure to run them, that expensive machinery is basically useless. It'll just gather dust because the minds operating it can't keep up with the pace of change. Which, of course, brings us full circle, right back to Apple. The company that literally built its empire on the idea of thinking differently is now facing its own moment of truth. Can they apply that same innovative spirit to the very people who will build their products? I mean, just look at their track record. Apple has redefined entire industries. They changed how we communicate, how we create and consume media, how we learn and share information. So the challenge is right there. What if the next great redefinition on Apple's timeline is actually about how we prepare human minds for the future? And here it is, the final, really big thought that reframes this whole conversation. For just a second, forget about the next iPhone or the next MacBook. What if Apple's next truly world-changing product wasn't a product at all? What if it was a revolutionary new model for developing human potential at a massive scale? I mean, what would that even look like? At the end of the day, this is all about redefining what made in America really means. It has to be something deeper. It has to mean minds made for tomorrow, meta minds, ready now. It's about making sure that our people are just as advanced, just as capable, and just as future-proof as the amazing products they create.